Kyle. So we had a couple of good questions this morning on our Google Meets from a couple of the students. So I just wanted to address a couple of the questions to help you with work for this week and maybe some that you were struggling with from the week before. So the first one had to do with solving two-step equations with the division symbol. So I'm going to write down a problem and let's work on it together. So if we have the problem -6 plus x over 3 equals 8, just like any problem using variables, my goal is to get the variable by itself. So I want to start with the thing that's the furthest away from x on that same side. Remember, I'm dealing with both the left side and the right side, and whatever I do to one, I need to do to the other. So if I'm looking at my x, what's furthest from is the -6. So I want to get rid of -6. Now in order to get rid of the negative, I could choose to subtract -6 or to add +6. Both of them would do the same thing. I'm going to add +6 because I want to think in a positive mentality. So when I added 6 to both sides, I did it to both the left and the right. My 6 and my -6 on the left hand side canceled out, and 8 plus 6 gave me 14. Now my next step, I want to get rid of this 3 in the denominator. Whenever you have a number in the denominator, the way to get rid of it is to multiply by it. So because 3 is in the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 3 on both the left and the right. When I multiplied by 3 on my left side, my 3 in the denominator canceled out. When I did it on my right side, 14 times 3 gives me 42. So my answer is x equals 42. I now want to talk about probabilities for this week, and your first probability is to be determining probabilities. We're going to talk about what would happen with it not going to happen, it might happen, and it's definitely going to happen. So the numbers that you're going to use for these type of probabilities are 0, 1/2, and 1. So when we're talking about probabilities, we're talking about the likelihood of something to happen. So if it's going to happen 0% of the time, that means it's not going to happen. If it's going to happen half the time, or 50%, that means it might happen. It's 50-50. If it's a 1, it means it's definitely going to happen. It's going to happen 100% of the time. The first problem I want us to practice with is this one. It will snow in Puerto Rico in August. So if we're thinking about that problem, it will snow in Puerto Rico in August. This is really just using your logic skills. If I'm talking about it snowing in an island in the middle of the summer, is that not going to happen? Might happen, or definitely will happen. So now we're talking about it snowing on an island in the middle of August, close to the equator. That's not going to happen, so you would select 0. It's not going to happen 0% of the time. Your next problem, the next baby born at the hospital will be a girl. Well, it's a 50-50. It's going to be born a boy or a girl. So that question, maybe, it might happen. The last one, Mr. LaForest will answer your questions for math. Whenever you send me a question, I try to get back to it. I'm going to get back to it when I can. So, definitely going to happen. 100% of the time, if you ask me a good question, I will give you a good answer. Let's move on to comparing probabilities. So if I'm playing a game that involves a spinner, and when I spin the spinner, half the time I'll land on a triangle, 2/5 of the time I'll land on a circle, and 1/10 of the time I'll land on a star. These would be my probabilities. The star would be 1/10 of the time, the circle would be 2/5 of the time, and the triangle would be half the time. So this is for your last worksheet. It's comparing experimental and theoretical probabilities. I know it's a lot of big words, but do not overthink it. It's really just thinking, what are the odds? What's the likelihood that this is going to happen? So let's think about the probability if I were to try and land on a star after 50 spins. So I want to think about the probability for landing on a star for 50 spins. So I want to think, what are the odds that if I were to spin 50 times that I would land on a star? Well, if I know that 1/10 of the time I'll land on a star, well, how many times does 10 go into 50? So if I know 50 divided by 10 equals 5, I can multiply 5 by the 1 in my numerator. So that means that my probability for landing on a star for 50 spins means that out of 50 spins, I will land on the star probably 5 times. So let's do the same thing, but this time using the circle. So now I want to think, what's the probability for landing on a circle for 50 spins? My probability is 2/5. I need to think, how many times does 5 go into 50? So we know that 5 goes into 50 10 times. My next step is to do 10 times 2. Well, 10 times 2 gives me 20. This means that the probability for landing on a circle for 50 spins is 20 times. So out of 50 spins, I might land on the circle 20 times. Now let's do the same thing, but this time use a triangle. So I want to know, what's my probability for landing on a triangle for 50 spins? If I know that I'll land on the triangle half the time, I might already know the answer. But let's think about this. I need to divide 50 by 2. So if 2 goes into 50 25 times, my last step is multiply 25 by the numerator. 25 times 1 gives me 25. So my probability for landing on a triangle in 50 spins is 25 times. All this is fractions. We're just thinking about what are the real life odds of us landing on things. We're playing games, rolling dice, flipping coins. Don't overthink this. Use your fractions. Come down to your steps. If I'm looking at the probability of doing something or not doing something, look at the total fraction. I'm going to do one more example using stars. So we're going to come back and use our steps. The probability for landing on a star for 70 spins. I'm going to divide and then multiply. So if you notice, I actually set this one up like a fraction. Remember, our fractions are just division. 70 divided by 10 gives us 7. So that means I need to take this number and multiply it by 1. 7 times 1 is 7. So the probability of landing on a star for 70 spins is 7. Do not forget to plug back in. For the stars, yes, it works out to get our answer here. That's because our numerator is 1. If our numerator is not 1, you need to make sure you plug back in. Remember, our steps: divide, multiply. Think logically, does it make sense? If you have any questions, we can get together on Thursday. We're doing our Google Meets again at the same link. I hope this helps.